All right, so hi everyone, welcome back to ONYX Pages. In this video, I am going to run Gutter Child through the 7 calorie shell rating system, which is not exactly a rating system, but I digress. Welcome back to ONYX Pages. So, one of my first reads of 2021 was Gutter Child by Jael Richardson. Jael Richardson is a Canadian writer, Black Canadian writer, and I had the pleasure of going to her virtual launch of this book, and it was really, really great. So I'm going to just read the synopsis, and then we'll get into it, and I will also show you how I bedazzled the F out of this book. I feel like I need to be polite today. So, set in an imagined world in which the most vulnerable are forced to buy their freedom by working off their debt to society, Gutter Child uncovers a nation divided into the privileged mainland and the policed gutter. In this world, Elmina Dubois is one of only 100 babies taken from the gutter and raised in the land of opportunity as part of a social experiment led by the mainland government. When Elmina's mainland mother dies, she finds herself all alone, a teenager forced into an unfamiliar life of servitude, unsure of who she is and where she belongs. Elmina is sent to an academy with new rules and expectations where she befriends gutter children who are making their own way through the system in whatever ways they know how. When her life takes another unexpected turn, Elmina will discover that what she needs more than anything may not be the freedom she longs for after all. Richardson's Gutter Child reveals one young woman's journey through a fractured world of heartbreaking disadvantages and shocking injustices. Elmina is a modern heroine in an altered but all too recognizable reality who must find strength within herself to forge her future and defy a system that tries to shape her identity, her destiny. So that is Gutter Child, and this is my Melanin Eclectic bookmark. Okay, so first theme, world building. So this is speculative fiction. It is unclear where this world, like what time period this world is in. I could imagine it, I don't know, it's hard to sort of place this world, but the world is really complex. As you can tell from the description, there is a whole political system that Richardson creates, right? So there are politics that uphold this racialized caste system between the gutter and the mainland, which act as metaphors for black and white. There's a whole education system that is designed to uphold this separation. There's a physical separation, so it's a gated, the gutter is a place, a physical location that is gated. So there are people who live on either side of the wall, and to get from the gutter to the mainland, you have to like have a pass, right? So there's an apartheid type kind of feeling to it. You have to have a pass, and you can only go into the mainland under certain circumstances, and there's so much there, right? The society is very rigidly defined and controlled by white men. And so I love that kind of world building. So as you're hearing me describe it, you might be thinking of the world that it's not actually, it's kind of like the world that Octavia E. Butler builds in the Xenogenesis series. So, except without the aliens, right? But like very, very regimented in terms of what land you can be on and where you can go and where you can't go. But I think that another comparator, if we take it out of Black science fiction and fantasy, actually no, let's not take it out. Let's keep it inside. So think Unkindness of Ghosts, right? Very controlled society. Also Nikki Drayden's Escaping Exodus world as well. Again, very regimented. People in their own place, can't move from one kind of caste to another kind of thing. So that if you're into political world building, there's no magic in that sense here. I mean, there's the magic of love and companionship and so on, but it's a mundane world. So if you're interested in that, I don't know why I got really, really close like that. I'm just emphatic. I'm leaning into the camera. Then I think you would enjoy this. So that's one element of the world building that I really enjoyed. In terms of the fantastic, I've already talked to you about it. There isn't anything sort of fantastical or like there isn't magic. No one's running through time or anything like that. It's a mundane speculative fiction world, and I love it. In terms of the point of view, the story is written from the perspective of Elmina. As you heard in the synopsis, Elmina is a very young girl. The reason why she ends up back in this academy, so she lived in the mainland. The reason why she had to go back to this academy was because her adopted mother died. It's pretty clear in the story that Elmina is a black child raised by a white mother, and a white mother who causes her harm, but that's not all that she does, right? And without going into details, it's a difficult relationship, and we learn about that relationship as things move on. But we hear the story, we encounter this world through the eyes of a black girl child, and we have to accept her naivete and the fact that she lived a very sheltered life, and she goes through a big transition in her life. And I think that gives the story a lot of feeling, because, you know, if you're an adult reading it, sometimes you might be like, Elmina, why are you doing that? And then you're like, oh, she's 9 right now, or 11 or 12 or whatever. And so there's a lot of, oh, don't do that. There's a lot of innocence in the story. So I appreciated that it was written from her point of view. But there was another character, Josephine, that I preferred to the main character. And if Richardson ever writes a spin-off or a sequel, I would love for it to be written from Josephine's perspective, because I preferred Josephine as a character to Elmina. So let me talk about, and in points of view, drawing from the work of visionary fiction and the work of Walida Imarisha and her counterparts, the main question when I talk about points of view is, was the story written from the point of view of the most oppressed person? And if so, how did that impact the narrative? So I don't know that Elmina was the most oppressed in the story. There are a lot of people who experience various levels and layers and intersections of oppression, but she definitely was somebody who was subject to the whims of the system and the people in her life, and that allowed us to critique the power structures in the world that Richardson created really strongly, right? Because we could see how it impacted her. She didn't take those things for granted, and she was always in a place of discovery, because she didn't know what the gutter was, and she didn't know what academies were or anything like that. So we see her like experience oppression, and that was a very powerful thing. So in terms of characters, the character that we follow is Elmina and her friends at the academy, and mostly it's a story of her relationships with those young people that she meets at the academy, and how those relationships change as they connect to each other, separate from each other, and live their own lives. I loved that it was a story that really focused on the relationship between girls. When I first started reading it, I likened it to the relationships between the girls in the orphanage and Little Orphan Annie, and except blackity black, and there's that. But as the story developed, that comparison didn't stick as strongly for me. But there are lots of girls and young women and women in relationship with each other in this story, and I just loved that. I absolutely loved it. I felt that that there were ways that men and boys dominated women and girls in this story that I would have liked to see taken up more and questioned more in the narrative. I felt at times that I need to kind of accept that it was happening, and there were some cringe moments and very difficult moments that I had to read that I wanted to see developed a little bit more or problematized. I think that the right word is problematized in the text. In terms of the options, so the interesting thing about stories about children is that sometimes their options are limited. And by options, I'm referring to choices that they have to make, choices in how they live their lives. And when you're a young person or a child, it's really hard to find moments where you get autonomy and agency. And throughout all of the story, you know, Elmina just had to do what other people told her to do, or to take the path that somebody said was the best for her, even when she was trying to set her own path. And that was hard because she didn't have the opportunity to set out her own destiny in the way that I think she would have had she more space and more power to do so, and had she received encouragement from others to do so. I found that I felt really sad about Elmina as a main character. The relevance to Black queer lives, I don't recall. It has been a couple of weeks. I don't recall that many or any at all queer characters or dealing with any issues related to LGBT folks in this story. I definitely think that there are opportunities to do so. If when I'm looking through my notes, my mind changes on that, I'll let you know. But looking back, I don't remember anything like that. And then in terms of the reading experience, so this was a hybrid read, and I read the book with my eyes, and I read the book with my ears by listening to the recording in Audible. Now, what I will say about narration is that there's a difference between narrating a book, as in reading it, and performing a book. And the narrator for this, I think this was one of her first, or if not the very first time that she narrated a book. And I would say that her narration leaned more on the reading as opposed to performance side of things. And I noticed that I have been more, most of the narrations that I've listened to in the past year have been seasoned actors in their 40s, 50s, 60s performing these works. And it was a bit of a shift to hear this narrator. So she's a young Black woman, I think Canadian young Black woman, spoken word artist. And it took me a little while to get used to her tone and timbre. It was a lot more narrow in its variation than other narrators who, like, you'll hear them voice two different characters and they sound like two different people, and that's not what we experienced here. But what the narrator really conveyed powerfully was the sense of, like, helplessness that Elmina had to go through, and I thought that was very powerfully done. The overall reading experience was good. I definitely bedazzled the book. I used gemstones a lot, so you can see that there. Throughout the book there were gemstones, there's washi tape, and I just had a blast kind of like highlighting things, writing things in the margins, and then making it as pretty as possible. So I would absolutely recommend that you read this book, that you also listen to the narration. It's an excellent work coming out of Canada, speculative in nature. This is Jael Richardson. She's super pretty and love her glasses, and really personable. So yeah, this was The Gutter Child, a book that I very much enjoyed. And for those of you who are interested in mundane speculative fiction, I would definitely recommend that you check this out. Now I'm going to go and watch all the reviews of this book. I am going to shout out I'm gonna shout out Josh of Josh's Bookish Adventures, because I think he read Gutter Child and really loved it. So if I can find his review, I will link that in the end. If you've watched this all the way to the end, please put a
light.
A light. It could be a light bulb, any kind of light, in the down below, as Bear would say. Thank you very much. Read with purpose, everyone. Always read with purpose. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.